I'm Tim.
I'm Liz.
And this is our 1986 adventure-ready high-top Syncro.
Well, I keep on climbing, taking on this mountain.
The van we got needed a lot of love, and I didn't know anything about them, so like the learning curve just like climbs very steep when you don't know what you're doing. And like we just kind of slowly traded up through sweat equity to get to where we are now. I think my hindsight's already kicked in, and I can see like we'll never have this opportunity again to be in our 20s and 30s. To, let our own imagination dictate where we're going. And so I already know, like, I need to revel in this because we will never get this opportunity again.
So, one of the things with van life is we wanted it to be super comfortable, even though it's really not all that comfortable, but there are ways to make it. One thing we did was install a high top. We knew we wanted standing room, headspace, and that's really important for us. So what we did is we completely gutted the whole interior and had to start from scratch, redo everything, paint everything, install the high top ourselves, and make all this bracketry and stuff like that for an extra bed. And then we also did the kitchen.
We decided that we wanted a stove and a sink in this van. There's some pros and cons to having a installed stove versus just a camp stove that you could set on a counter. There's a little bit of give and take, but we wanted a inside kitchen and an outside kitchen, so we have a stove that goes outside, which we do most of our cooking, but it's really nice when we're boondocked or camping just for one night and don't want to take everything out and cook outside. So this van, we decided to put in this Dometic stove and sink combo, so it's protected when we want it, and we can have the sink that runs off just a simple pump. This runs off propane that we just connect to a small propane tank.
One thing that I knew would be really important is drinking water, obviously for obvious reasons. I know in certain remote areas it's really hard. So what I came up with was a water purification system that we can put dirty water in the tank and run it by UV light and charcoal filter and actually have drinking water out the tap. So that's like something that for us that is another way to extend our stay some places. We can just pull water out of a river, pour it in the tank, and then we can actually drink it and not feel like we're gonna get the runs.
Which isn't fun in van life.
No, it's really not. But we haven't experienced it yet because we have a water purifier.
Having a fridge in van life is pretty key to have cold, everything. Cold beer, vegetables, dairy products, all of that. We decided to do the truck fridge versus a pull-out fridge like we've had before. We just like this option better, and it takes up less space. And our fridge runs off solar power, so as long as we're parked in the sun, the fridge runs perfectly.
We have 200 watts dispersed between the front and rear panel, and the front panel is adjustable, so we can kind of point it and angle it towards the sun, so we're always getting the most amount of sun.
Is 200 watts enough?
I think so. I mean, our battery's not enough.
How big's your battery?
112 amp hours AGM.
What would you recommend?
Lithium ion, and I'll tell you, spend the money, because we are now down here and we are now having to look at finding 2 new deep cycle batteries because this one's bad. Whereas if we had lithium, we wouldn't even have to think twice. So spend the money, learn from our mistake. One thing we love about the high top is just the amount of storage that we have. So both like all our camping gear, but then like all the stuff we don't want to get stolen ever. So we put this locking storage. So that way, when we leave the van, we don't have to always worry about our stuff getting stolen and being a real problem for us. With everything on the van, everything's dual purpose, right? So this is all storage, but we built it so we can slide these and actually fold us out for a bed, so when we have visitors or hitchhikers or we're in a fight, one of us can sleep away from each other. Just kidding, that never happens. But it's just another way to keep it dual storage, bed, you know, so everything is kind of dynamic in that we have more than one option. So one of the best things about a high top is you get a fan, and not only a good fan, but a fantastic fan. These fans pull a lot of air. They can push, pull. So when we leave the dog in the van for a minute, we just crank the fan on. It actually does a really good job of keeping the van cool.
This is a main component of safety and security for us. The center console made by Vanagon Life. It's strong enough that you can walk on it, so we can go back and forth, which we like. And it has the cup holders, a very necessity of van life, but also the lockable storage inside, so we tend to put all of our electronics, things that we need to keep safe, and we tend to lock it up every time we leave the van, at least just to be in the habit of doing that. We also have, behind the seat, we have an air compressor, so when we air down to go on the beach, we can always pump back up our tires, and a nice heater for the van that runs off the gas tank. We haven't been able to use that down here, but in the States, when it's cold, it pumps out some serious heat.
So one of the reasons that we went with this engine is it's the most simplest engine you can get, and it's just available everywhere, so parts are really common and we know they're really reliable. We chose a Boston conversion, which is a Ford Focus engine, because it's reliable, it's very simple, it won't break other parts because it's so strong, and we just know this is probably the best option for us for going all the way to South America. One problem we always had with this engine was the air filter is literally right here, and so dust would always get kicked up, you know, and go straight into the air filter and clog it, and so, you know, the engine will get much slower and stuff. So one thing I wanted to do was grab air way cleaner up here, and so this was just another like fun project to teach myself how to build something from my imagination. So just a very simple air cleaner coming down to a tube to the air box, and then kind of going off that self-reliance thing, one other thing that we did was we knew we needed some way to get ourselves out of like really sticky situations, and so being able to carry max tracks and a high lift on this window is really important for us, and it's helped us a lot get a bunch of tourists off the beach. We have not gotten stuck yet.
Well, I keep on climbing, taking on this mountain. Still I keep.
Another thing that I always really liked from overland rigs was they always had the tire in the back, and I knew because we'd have two boxes, we needed a way to put the tire out of the way. So I came up with this really simple, just tire carrier over the window, and it acts as secondary security, so someone can't bash the window and sneak through. One other idea that we had was, it was actually given to us, was turn the bumper into an air tank. And I was like, that's a great idea, you know? And so, of course, I went over the top and tried to make the entire thing an air tank. And like van life, you know, this van looks like everything we started out doing, we accomplished, and it rocked. But in reality, like, this failed horribly and doesn't work. And it's one of those things like we came up with an idea, we tried it, and it didn't work, and we didn't like, you know, oh, this doesn't work, this isn't gonna ever work. We just kind of like accepted that it's a huge learning curve. I mean, this whole bumper was built with a circular saw and a welder. It was just like what I could come up with, and sometimes it didn't always work. One thing, it's really hard to plan in advance for like the environment and stuff, and I knew like we really needed a lot of storage for like oils, greases, really nasty tools, you know, stuff that like stinks up the van really easily. And so something that I came up with was like these aluminum boxes, but they're really flimsy boxes. I mean, like the lids aren't very strong, so one simple like security idea was just flip them backwards. So when they're closed, the door is hidden and no one can really just break into it. But like a secondary advantage is when we're in use, like I'm doing engine work or something, we have built-in workbenches. So one of the main things that we really wanted was like be able to shower on the road. I mean, because you get really dirty living in a van. There's companies that make them, they make them kind of prevalent, but they're really expensive. And I was like, I know I can do one better, or at least equal. And so what I came up with was, you know, very simple black aluminum tube. But what you'll see is these wiring, all these tubing running in and out. What I actually did was plumb it so that we can heat it off the engine. So we can literally heat the water whenever we need to, just using very simple stuff that, like a simple water pump, a simple heat exchanger, and just wired it into the engine, and we can literally heat this to the temperature we want. And it actually does it so well that we have to be really careful, because we have gotten it over like 130 degrees, which is rather a hot shower. So it just simply goes down and to a pump, and then exchanges with the engine and comes back up. And it was just kind of like a really fun project, but a way for us not to be stinky on the road.
Yeah, it's been really nice to like wake up on a beach, or you know, just know that we are in control of what we want to do the entire time. What was so validating is when I left my job, I worked with a lot of really professional doctors. When I told them, you know, I'm leaving because this is what we're going to do, I would say 60% of them would come up and say, I've always wanted to do that. And it's like, I knew, like, people miss the opportunity. They don't sacrifice, and they just don't give it up and say, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna work to achieve my goal. For me, it's been like, I know this, like, I'm on a beach in Baja right now, and this is so boring. I could be at work. And work is way more boring, so I'll take it.
Okay, if you guys are hearing this, I don't know how to say this. I think we're being kidnapped by the Combi Life, and they're gonna steal our Syncro. We're really concerned, and I don't know if we're gonna get out of here alive. Help us. We're at 9 Palms, and we were surfing. Now they're trying to steal our van.